No responsibility for that. Question number 4, the Hon Paula Bennett.
My question is to the Prime Minister. Does she stand by all her statements and actions?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, yes, and compliments of the season.
Does she stand by her statements in relation to the safety of Karl Schrobeck's estranged wife? Quote, "My expectation would be that if we had information brought to us that raised concerns around her safety, we act appropriately on that."
Mr Speaker, yes.
Does she stand by her statement in relation to Karl Schrobeck's estranged wife? Quote, "She asserted one thing when the process was in place, again falsely, and said something else today, and she has, quote, changed her tune now."
Mr Speaker, obviously a range of questions have been asked and answered on my behalf, as well as to me directly. But to clarify, of course, the action that was taken when, I believe on the 31st of October, I was first advised via a journalist of allegations that Mr Schrobeck's ex-wife safety may have been at risk, that I immediately raised that issue directly with the Minister of Immigration. This prompted the Minister to follow up. An investigation was launched, I understand, within 24 hours of that issue being raised directly with him.
If that is the case, then why has she repeatedly since then, even on her behalf, actually denigrated the ex-wife and made her out to not be a victim?
Mr Speaker, I do not believe that I have done that. When concerns around Mr Schrobeck's ex-wife's safety were raised with me, I raised it directly with those who had the most direct contact and the ability to offer that support and investigation. That was with the Minister of Immigration. It was also came to my attention further down the track that the member Mark Mitchell had raised concerns with the Minister of Police. As soon as I was aware of that, I followed up with the Minister of Police to gain assurances that he also had appropriately followed up on those concerns, and I'm advised that that was also done so.
Was Ian Lees-Galloway or anyone in her ministry at any point advised about the prison phone call of Karl Schrobeck with his estranged wife, where he threatened to send somebody to talk to her, said, quote, "This makes me angry so much and I'm going to effing let this go, F off"?
Mr Speaker, my understanding is that the Minister of Immigration was not aware that that phone call had taken place.
Is she aware that questions to her from me on the 8th of November raised questions around this phone call, and was it followed up by any of those people whom she said she did?
Mr Speaker, actually it was followed up before that. As I said, the first time these issues were raised with me and my office, in more general terms, I don't believe at that time it was specific as to say a phone call, but in general terms around safety issues, was, as I say, I believe on the 31st of October. That same day I raised it with the Minister of Immigration, and I understand within 24 hours he had officials following up on that issue.
Does she stand by her statement that Ian Lees-Galloway was the victim in all of this?
Mr Speaker, my recollection, of course, that was a statement that was made, I think, in the context of a set of wider issues on my behalf when I was unfortunately unavailable in the House.
Who does she believe? The drug-dealing thug Karl Schrobeck, who claims that this is all just a property dispute, or his estranged wife, who was screamed at, threatened and placed under police protection?
No Prime Ministerial responsibility for that.
Point
Further
of order,
supplementary.
sir. I think she's made it clear in the past that actually in answers to questions in this House...
Well, I should have ruled it out.
Well then, does she stand by her previous statement that she asserted one thing in regards to the estranged wife? She asserted one thing when the process was in place, again falsely, where she is saying that she doesn't believe the ex-wife. And does she still stand by that?
Mr Speaker, as I've reiterated, the moment that I heard these allegations, I acted. Of course I was concerned around any claims that were made around coercion, threats of violence, anything in that regard. I raised it immediately with the Minister of Immigration, who acted, and I understand work was undertaken straight away as a result of those allegations, as it should have.
Point of order.
A point of order, the Honourable Paula Bennett.
I have a situation here where I've got her saying one thing in this House since then. I'm asking her if she still stands by that.
You mean the Prime Minister?
Yes, I do, sorry. Yes. The Prime Minister, sorry. I have the Prime Minister who has said something in this House in recent weeks in regards to the ex-wife. I have the direct quote. I'm asking her if she still stands by it, the Prime Minister, and I can't get an answer to that, and it is in quite contrast to the answer she's giving me today.
I'm going to ask the member to ask it again, but I also want to make clear that the Prime Minister indicated that it was the important answer was one given on her behalf, which does give her some room to move away.
Point of order, sir. Just, and I don't ask for a ruling today, but I do ask you to reflect. As a previous someone that used to answer on behalf of a Prime Minister, it was made extremely clear to us that our words were not our own in this House when answering on behalf. Yep. They were certainly the words of the Prime Minister, and that is something I took very seriously.
And I think the member has heard me say this to the Deputy Prime Minister when he's been acting for the Prime Minister to indicate, as may have been indicated to that member on occasion, that the voice being used was not exactly the one that the Prime Minister would have used.
Does she stand by her statement in relation to Carol Schrobeck's estranged wife? Quote, she asserted one thing when the process was in place, again falsely, and said something else today, and she has changed her tune now.
Again, I have reiterated several times both what I have directly stated and the action that I have directly undertaken. Those have been utterly consistent. I cannot, Mr. Speaker, hand on heart answer now as to whether the Deputy Prime Minister, when answering on my behalf, knew of the actions I had undertaken directly with the Minister of Immigration when I was advised by a journalist of concerns for her safety. But, Mr. Speaker, I'm being utterly clear with the House now about the action that I took.
Was the Deputy Prime Minister, when answering on her behalf, wrong to claim it like that?
Mr. Speaker, again, without having the full transcript and context of the conversation, what I am outlining here is, again, the direct action that I undertook, and I absolutely stand by that.
A point of order.
A point of order, the Honourable Paula Bennett.
I acknowledge that it's the second to last day, sir, and that it might be next year, but I do think that we need a more solid ruling on, when speaking on behalf of the Prime Minister, that those words are the words of the Prime Minister. If there needs to be a correction to that record, there is a tradition and a way to do that in this House.
I don't think we need an additional ruling. The rulings on the matter are very clear. If someone answers a question and it's grossly wrong, then there's an obligation for that to be corrected. If members came back on both sides of the House to correct every error they made, we'd be spending a lot of time doing it. Further supplementaries? Question number 5, Tamati Coffin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.